All right. So, it is New Year's Eve 2021, and this is what I read during 2021. Murakami Haruki, or Haruki Murakami. So this is Murder of Il Comandante or something like that in English. And unfortunately, I didn't like it so much because I read almost everything by Murakami Haruki, and this felt like just lots of writing. He's very good at that. He's a master storyteller, but I was left unsatisfied. And then we have two manga. First I read Yotsuba, which is a children's manga from Japan, of course. And this is the 5th volume. I don't think I will continue with this one either, because it's fun and sweet, but it didn't give me so much. This one though, volume 15 of Fur Ahead Coco. This one I loved, and I will read more of this one. Then I read Solarpunk. This is an anthology from Brazil, so it was fun to read something from Brazil. And this was sort of the sequel of cyberpunk, they said, but then I think it turned into steampunk, and it's one of these subcultural genres. I thought it was not good actually, except for Roberta Spindler, The Sun in the Heart. That was a really good story. And then we have A River Called Time by Courttia Newland. I didn't read so many novels, but I would say that this is the novel of the year for me, and I read it in the beginning of the year as well. I found him through the Second Life book club, and here we have an old master coming back, Michel Houellebecq. This one is called Serotonin. This is a little bit similar to Murakami, that he rambles on in the way that he's used to, so I don't think that this was as strong as Soumission, but even so, of course, Houellebecq is Houellebecq. It's so entertaining to read him. And then the end of this strong start of the year are 4 books that are anthropology related. Loïc Wacquant, Body and Soul, Notebooks of an Apprentice Boxer. And this one I recorded my impressions of. And Howard S. Becker, Tricks of the Trade, How to Think About Your Research While You're Doing It. It's like a handbook in theory for social scientists, and I also recorded a little summary of that one. Ryszard E. Nisbett, The Geography of Thought. It's about how Westerners and Asians think differently and why. And I recorded a little video on this one as well. And then the grand finale, James Clifford and George E. Marcus, Writing Culture. This is the highly influential book from 1986 that sort of instigated the crisis of representation in anthropology. So I recorded a little summary of every chapter in that book, and it was very good to read it, because I think every anthropologist needs to. The thing is that what happened then after this strong start was that the mellow middle began, and it began in the form of a very severe bike crash of which I have no memories. So I got a concussion and I had to take it easy for a while. And when I started reading again, I started with The Other. It's like a very thin essay by Ryszard Kapuscinski, the author of the Polish journalist and reporter and author of The Empire. And then I realized that what I could read when I had this concussion, when I was recovering from it, was manga, so Japanese comics. And this one, as you might remember, I read the first volume of Gokujo Danshi to Kurashitemasu by Kurumatani Haruko-san last year. And this is the second volume. She's my favorite. She's really good. I recommend this one. And online, I read, in English actually, Sunday, Go For It, or Sunday, Go For It, Nakamura. Gangbate Nakamura. So that was a manga that was recommended to me by a research participant in Japan, and I loved it so much. It's like written for us. And then also while recovering, I read J.M. Barrie, Peter Pan, the classic. Through the Second Life Book Club, Nino Cipri, Defect, which was okay, entertaining. Wayne Santos, The Difficult Loves of Maria Makiling. I listened to it as an audiobook, also for the Second Life Book Club. I didn't like it so much, actually, to be honest. And then in May 2021 there was the Sexuality Summer School at the University of Manchester, and for that I read Julieta Singh, No Archive Will Restore You, which I didn't like at all, to be honest. And then I realized that I couldn't participate in this school because my head was still too messed up. But what I could do, though, was that I continued reading manga. Look at this. This is volume 5 through 12 of Kokoro Botan, which I think I read volume 4 in 2017, November, and throughout the summer, one chapter a day, I just devoured this one and loved it so much. It's a really sweet girls' manga about a girl and a boy. And then we come to... so the summer continued, and I got a little bit more strength, and then I read Deep Work at the end of the summer. Deep Work by Cal Newport. And this is about how to focus in a distracted world, so who doesn't need this one? It is a self-help book. It's a great self-help book, and I took strong impressions from this one, and I think that it has sort of primed me a little bit for the rest of the year. Almost right after that one, I read Angela Duckworth, Grit, the Science of Passion and Perseverance, I think it's called, which sort of goes very well together with Deep Work. So I recommend both of those books very much. I also finished Robin DiAngelo, White Fragility. And that's an interesting book because she brings up some very important points about how white people become defensive when racism is discussed. But at the same time, I'm critical because her whole idea of racism is that it's some kind of original sin that we can only repent. It's a very US-centered book. And then at the end of the summer, I read George Bataille, Eroticism. And this one I summarized in a little summary. And I didn't like it at all. It's too dense. He's not a good writer. That's my opinion, but and his conclusions and ideas are not so special, but it felt important to read it anyway. You know, now we have come to the end of the mellow middle, and what happened in September 2021 was that I started a PhD program at the University of Manchester. So that autumn, the academic autumn, kicked off with Patrick W. Galbraith, The Ethics of Affect. He is probably my favorite academic author, and he is doing research in a similar area as I am. So that was a great sort of primer and starter for the autumn. And then very quickly I covered some queer theory, Jeffrey Weeks, Sexuality, Nikki Sullivan, A Critical Introduction to Queer Theory, Anna Marie Jagosi, Queer Theory and Introduction, and coming out on the other side of that, this one, Epistemology of the Closet by Eve Kosowski-Sedgwick. This is a classic, of course, that is also quite dense to get through, but necessary, I would say. It's such an important work in the area of queer studies. And continuing from that one, I needed to get on top of Foucault, Michel Foucault. So I started with the Foucault Reader, edited by Paul Rabinov, which is a really good summary, I must say, a really good collection of Foucault's writings. And then, just now in December 2021, I read these three. The History of Sexuality, Volume 1, 2, and 3. And these are actually is the Swedish translation, so that was so convenient to be able to read this in my mother tongue. And it's I read these before, but I would say that I read them in another way now. And that was everything in 2021. So Happy New Year everyone, and see you next year.